I once wrote a resume for my dream job, a position I wasn't remotely qualified for. I spent hours perfecting it, shaping every line to make myself sound just capable enough for the work I desperately wanted, but secretly believed I could never have. Then I stared at the send button for 20 long minutes and closed my laptop without clicking it. Who was I kidding? I didn't have the experience. A week later, my phone rang. "Hi, this is Thomas from Wildwood Sanctuary. We received your resume and would love to have you come in for an interview." I froze. I never sent that resume. But I showed up anyway, curious, confused, and what I found there left me speechless. Before we dive in, have you ever been given an opportunity you didn't think you deserved? Share your story in the comments. And if you love true stories about taking chances, finding purpose, and following your dreams, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Now, let me take you back to the night I wrote a resume for an impossible job. I was working as an operations manager at a logistics company in Minneapolis. Coordinating supply chains, managing shipments, optimizing routes. It paid well, had benefits, and my parents were proud. But it wasn't the life I'd imagined for myself at 32. I had a degree in biology, and 10 years ago, I'd dreamed of working in conservation, protecting endangered species, spending my days outdoors instead of under fluorescent lights. But conservation jobs were rare and competitive. Most didn't pay well, and after years of failed attempts, I took the logistics job just for now. 10 years later, I was still there. I spent weekends hiking alone, volunteering at the local nature center, dreaming of a life I'd convinced myself I couldn't have. Then one Thursday evening in late September, after another soul-crushing day at work, I was scrolling on my phone and found myself on a conservation job board, a place I sometimes visited just to torture myself with the life I wasn't living. And that's when I saw it. Conservation Coordinator, Wildwood Sanctuary. Full-time, working on wildlife rehabilitation, education programs, and conservation partnerships. They wanted someone with a biology background, program management experience, and passion for wildlife. It was in the Boundary Waters region, northern Minnesota. My heart started pounding. This was it. This was the job. I clicked their website, Wildwood Sanctuary, a 400-acre wildlife rehabilitation center surrounded by forests and meadows. They rescued and cared for injured animals, eagles, owls, foxes, and released them back into the wild. They ran educational programs for schools and the community. The photos looked like heaven, staff members tending to animals, sunlight streaming through trees, freedom and purpose in every frame. Then I scrolled down to the job requirements. Minimum 5 years, experience in conservation or wildlife management, master's degree preferred, experience in grant writing, established relationships in the conservation community. My heart sank. I had a biology degree, but just a bachelor's and a decade old. My experience was in logistics, not wildlife. I'd never written a grant. I barely knew anyone in the field. I wasn't qualified, not even close. But something in me refused to give up. I opened a blank document and started writing anyway. For 3 hours, I crafted that resume. I reframed my logistics experience as program coordination and stakeholder management. I highlighted my biology degree and volunteer work at the Nature Center, making it sound more substantial than it was, but still honest. I wrote a cover letter that was raw and passionate, admitting my unconventional path, but also my deep commitment to conservation. When I finished, I sat back and looked at it. It was good, maybe even good enough. I opened the email draft, attached my resume and cover letter, and typed in Wildwood Sanctuary's address. Then I froze. For 20 minutes, I just stared at that send button. My finger hovered over it, ready to click. But I couldn't, because sending it meant risking rejection. It meant letting someone read my carefully written dream and possibly tearing it apart. "Who are you kidding, Nina?" I whispered to my empty apartment. "You're not qualified for this. They want someone real, someone with experience, not someone who coordinates truck routes." I sighed, closed my laptop, and went to bed feeling like a coward. The next week at work was brutal. My company had rolled out a new software system that kept crashing. I worked 60 hours troubleshooting problems, sitting in endless meetings about metrics I didn't care about. By Thursday, exactly 1 week after I'd written that resume, I was exhausted and broken, questioning every decision that had led me here. That's when my phone rang. "Hello." "Hi, is this Nina Hartley?" "Yes, this is Nina." "Great, this is Thomas Reed, director at Wildwood Sanctuary. We received your resume for the conservation coordinator position, and I have to say, we were really impressed. We'd love to have you come in for an interview this Saturday, if you're available." I froze. My heart pounded. I never sent that resume. But somehow, it got there. And that moment changed everything. "Could you repeat that?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. "Yes," Thomas said warmly. "We got your resume and would love to interview you for the position. Are you still interested?" I froze. There must be some mistake. I didn't send you a resume. He paused for a moment. "You did. Well, we have it right here, resume and cover letter from Nina Hartley. Received last Thursday. Strong biology background, management experience, passion for wildlife conservation. That's you, isn't it?" I swallowed hard. "Yes, that's me. I mean, I did write a resume, but I never sent it. It's still sitting in my drafts folder." "Well," Thomas replied with a small laugh, "someone sent it, and we'd really like to meet you, unless you're no longer interested." My mind spun. This made no sense. I knew I hadn't sent that email. I'd checked over and over, but somehow they had it. "I'm interested," I heard myself say. "I'm definitely interested." "Excellent," he said. "Can you come by Saturday morning around 10 a.m.? I'll give you a tour of the facility and we can talk about the position." "Yes," I said quickly. "Yes, I can." He gave me the address and directions before we hung up. I immediately opened my laptop. The draft was still there. Exactly how I'd left it. Nothing in my sent folder. No trace that it had ever been emailed. Yet somehow they had it. I called my best friend, Rachel. "Something impossible just happened," I told her. "Did you finally quit that awful job?" she teased. "No, but maybe I should. I wrote a resume for a conservation job last week. The one I told you about, but I never sent it. I swear. And today, someone from that same place called me for an interview." "Maybe you sent it by accident," she said. "You were probably tired." I didn't forget, Ratch. I stared at the send button for 20 minutes. Then I closed my laptop. I remember it clearly. "Then how did they get it?" "I have no idea," I said, "but I'm going to that interview on Saturday." Rachel laughed softly. "Maybe it's the universe giving you a nudge." "I don't believe in that stuff," I said. "Maybe you should start," she replied. Saturday morning, I drove 2 hours north. The city faded into small towns, then forests, then endless lakes. The directions led me down a narrow, winding road surrounded by dense pine trees until I saw a hand-carved sign. Wildwood Sanctuary, Wildlife Rehabilitation and Conservation. The long driveway opened into a clearing filled with rustic buildings, a main lodge, a few smaller cabins, and acres of untouched wilderness stretching beyond. It was even more beautiful than I imagined. My stomach tightened with nervous excitement as I parked. A man in his 50s with kind eyes and graying hair greeted me at the door. "Nina, I'm Thomas Reed. Thank you for coming." "Thank you for having me," I said, "though I'm still not sure how you got my resume." Thomas chuckled. "Technology works in mysterious ways. Come on, let me show you around." He led me through the sanctuary. The main building held offices, classrooms, and a small visitor center filled with displays about local wildlife. Behind it, Several rehabilitation enclosures stood large, natural spaces where injured animals healed before release. "We're currently caring for 2 bald eagles," Thomas said as we walked. "This one flew into a power line and fractured her wing. She's almost ready to go home." I watched the majestic bird perch silently, her sharp eyes fixed on us. My chest tightened with emotion. This was real, the kind of work I'd always dreamed of doing. We visited foxes recovering from injuries, an owl with one cloudy eye, and a few orphaned fawns learning to survive on their own. Every animal had a story and a second chance. Thomas continued. "We also run education programs for schools, community workshops, and partner with state agencies on conservation efforts." It was everything I'd ever wanted. But as we walked, I also noticed the cracks, peeling paint, fences that needed repairs, old equipment, and tired faces. Only a handful of staff members, each clearly doing the work of 3. When we finally returned to his office, Thomas's tone shifted. "Nina, I want to be honest with you. You deserve to know what you'd be walking into." My stomach nodded. "Okay." "Wildwood has been around for 25 years, he said. "We were stable for most of that time, not wealthy, but steady. But 3 years ago, we lost our largest donor. Then, 2 years ago, a state grant was cut. We've been struggling to keep the lights on ever since. The position you applied for has been vacant for nearly a year." He opened a folder, showing me spreadsheets and reports. "We have maybe 6 months of funds left. If we don't secure major support soon, we'll have to close. The animals will be transferred elsewhere, if space can even be found." I felt my heart sink. "That's terrible." "It is," he said quietly. "And that's why this role is crucial. We need someone who can manage operations, apply for grants, reach out to donors, build partnerships, someone who can help us survive." He looked me straight in the eye. "Your resume shows strong management experience. You know how to coordinate people, solve problems, and keep things moving. That's exactly what we need right now." He sighed. "But Nina, I'll be honest, it won't be easy. This might be the hardest job you've ever had, and there's no guarantee we'll make it." I should have been scared. I should have thanked him politely and walked away. But instead, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: purpose. "I want the job," I said softly. Thomas smiled. "It pays $48,000 a year. That's the best we can offer right now." It was nearly half of what I made before, but I didn't hesitate. "That's fine." He nodded. "Then we'd need you to start as soon as possible. We're running out of time." "I can give 2 weeks notice at my current job," I said. "I could start in 3 weeks." Thomas smiled. "Then welcome to Wildwood Sanctuary, Nina. I hope you know what you're getting into." I didn't. I really, really didn't. My first day was a Monday in mid-October. Thomas gave me a small desk in the shared office space and introduced me to the team: Harry, the wildlife veterinarian; Claire, who managed rehabilitation; and Jerry, who took care of maintenance. Then he handed me a pile of folders. "These are our upcoming grant applications, all due within the next 3 months. Here are our education programs and attendance records. These are contacts from other conservation groups. And this," he said, handing me one last folder, "is our donor database, what's left of it." I stared at the mountain of paperwork and felt my first real wave of panic. "Where should I start?" "Wherever you think will make the biggest impact fastest," Thomas replied. "We need funding, Nina. That's the bottom line. Everything else depends on that." Over the next 2 weeks, I worked 12-hour days trying to get my head around everything. I'd never written a grant proposal in my life. Now I was responsible for multiple ones, each with its own rules and deadlines. I'd never done fundraising, but now I was supposed to organize donor events and maintain relationships. I'd never managed educational programs, yet suddenly, that was part of my job too. Every day, I discovered something new I didn't know how to do. 3 weeks in, I submitted my first grant application, a request for $75,000 from a regional conservation foundation. I spent 40 hours researching, writing, editing, and double-checking every word. I thought it was good. It was rejected within a week. The feedback read, "Proposal lacks specific program outcomes and measurable impact metrics." I didn't even fully understand what that meant. Still, I kept going. I organized an educational event for local schools to raise awareness and maybe some funds. I designed activities, created flyers, coordinated with teachers. 4 schools signed up. 2 canceled at the last minute. 12 students came. I'd planned for 50. We lost money. 3 weeks into the job, a crisis hit. One of the bald eagles, the same one I'd seen during my interview, developed a severe infection. Harry told me he needed a specific antibiotic immediately. "Can we order it?" I asked. "Not without approval," he said. "Thomas has to sign off on any expense over $100, and he's at a meeting in the city. Unreachable." "How much is the antibiotic?" $250. I hesitated for only a second. "Order it. We'll deal with the paperwork later." Harry looked uncertain, but he made the call. The eagle got the medicine and recovered. When Thomas returned, he called me into his office. "Nina, I appreciate your initiative, but we can't make unapproved purchases," he said gently. "We're operating on razor-thin margins. Every dollar matters." "The eagle needed the medication," I said quietly. "I know," he replied, "and you made the right call for the animal, but you also need to understand we're balancing 2 lives here, the animals and the sanctuaries. Both matter." I nodded, feeling crushed. I'd saved a bird, but somehow I'd still failed. A month into the job, I stayed late one night to finish some reports. Thomas and Harry were talking in the office, their door slightly open. They didn't realize I could hear them. "She's trying," Harry said. "I can see that, but is she really qualified? Every grant she's written has been rejected. The fundraiser lost money. She doesn't have the experience or the network we need. We're running out of time, Thomas." Thomas sighed. "We didn't have other applicants. She has management skills. She'll learn the conservation side." "And if she doesn't learn fast enough?" A long silence. Then Thomas said softly, "Then we'll have bigger problems than who our coordinator is." I slipped quietly out the back door, got into my car, and cried for 20 minutes in the dark parking lot. They were right. I wasn't qualified. Every rejection, every mistake, it all proved it. That mysterious resume landing on Thomas's desk hadn't been destiny. It had been a mistake. A cosmic error that put me in a job I wasn't ready for and might never be. The next morning, I called in sick. I spent the day in my small rented apartment, staring at job boards. Maybe I should just quit before they fired me. My old company would probably take me back. I could go back to logistics, a job I actually knew how to do. But the thought of returning to meetings about delivery routes and efficiency metrics made me feel sick. For 2 days, I stayed home, paralyzed by doubt. On the 3rd day, Rachel showed up at my door with coffee. "I'm not qualified," I told her. "I'm failing. I overheard them talking about me, and they're right. I thought this was meant to be. The resume appearing out of nowhere, the job offer, it felt like fate. But it's not. It's just a coincidence. I'm in over my head." "So you're going to quit?" she asked. "I don't know. Maybe I should." "Nina," she said firmly, "do you love the work?" "That's not the point." "It's exactly the point," she said. "Do you love it?" I thought about the eagle recovering from her injury, the 12 kids at my failed event who'd still left glowing with excitement, and the tiny fox kit I'd held while Harry checked for injuries. "Yes," I whispered. "I love it more than I've ever loved anything." "Then stop feeling sorry for yourself," she said, "and figure out how to get good at it." That night, I finally did something I should have done weeks ago, research. Real research. I found online courses in grant writing and enrolled in 2 of them. I reached out to coordinators at other sanctuaries and asked for advice. I joined conservation networks online and started asking questions. I studied successful grant proposals, rewriting my rejected ones, and learning how to speak the language funders wanted to hear. By Monday morning, I drove back to Wildwood Sanctuary. and the first thing I did was walk straight into Thomas's office. "I need to talk to you," I said quietly. Thomas looked up, concerned. "Nina, if this is about what you might have overheard." "You were right," I interrupted. "I'm not qualified for this job, at least not yet, but I want to be. Give me 3 more months. I'll even work without pay if I have to. Just give me a chance to prove I can learn fast enough to help save this place." Thomas studied me for a long moment before speaking. "You don't have to work without salary. But Nina, 3 months takes us to January. If we don't secure major funding by then, we'll start shutting down operations in February. Can you really make that much difference in 3 months?" "I don't know," I admitted, "but I'm going to try." He nodded slowly. "Then let's try together." The next 3 months were the hardest of my life. I worked 12 to 14 hours every day. I took online grant writing courses at night and reached out to every conservation organization, foundation, and potential donor I could find. I studied successful grant applications, learning how to write in the language funders understood. In November, I submitted 6 new grant proposals. 4 were rejected, but 2 were approved. The amounts weren't huge, $15,000 and $22,000, but it was something. It meant hope. I organized a holiday fundraising event in December, a community open house at the sanctuary, complete with tour, a silent auction, and an Adopt an Animal program where people could sponsor the care of animals in rehabilitation. I reached out to local media, partnered with community groups, and offered free admission for kids. 200 people came. And in one day, we raised $8,000. By January, I launched a crowdfunding campaign titled Save Wildwood, Give Wildlife a Second Chance. I'd been taking photos and videos of the animals in care, telling their stories, showing people what we were fighting for. The campaign spread like wildfire. The community rallied around us. Within 3 weeks, we raised $45,000. At the same time, I partnered with 3 local school districts to create curriculum-based programs so classes could visit the sanctuary as part of their science lessons. It wasn't just meaningful, it was sustainable. The schools loved it. By the end of January, I sat in Thomas's office with a spreadsheet I'd spent days perfecting. "These are our secured funds," I said, pointing to the totals: grants, donations, the crowdfunding campaign, and projected revenue from the new school partnerships. "We have enough to operate for another 18 months, I told him. "And we have momentum now. The community believes in this place. We can build on that." Thomas looked at the numbers for a long moment, then at me. "Nina," he said softly, "when you first got here, I wasn't sure you could do this job. I took a chance because I had no choice. But I wasn't confident. I'm sorry for that." "You were right to doubt me," I said. "I wasn't ready." "But you made yourself ready," he replied. "You learned faster than I thought anyone could. You worked harder than anyone I've ever seen. You didn't just take this job, you fought for it. You earned your place here." Tears filled my eyes. I couldn't let this place close. I couldn't let it fail. "It's not going to," Thomas said with a smile. "Not anymore because of you." 3 months later, on a bright April morning, I stood in the rehabilitation enclosure with Harry and Thomas. The bald eagle, the same one I'd seen on my interview day, the same one who nearly didn't make it, was finally ready to be released. We invited a local elementary class studying eagles to witness the moment. 30 excited children stood watching as I slowly opened the enclosure door. The eagle glanced back at us, then at the open sky ahead. She spread her massive wings and soared. The kids cheered. I cried. Thomas placed a hand on my shoulder and whispered, "This is why we do it. This moment right here." Later that day, I sat in my new office, a small space Thomas had given me once our crisis had passed, and looked at a framed photo on my desk. It was the resume I'd written but never sent. "Thomas," I'd asked him months ago, "how did you even get my resume? I've checked my email 100 times. I never sent it." He'd shown me a printout. It just appeared on my desk one morning. No email, no envelope, no note, just your resume sitting there. I thought someone from the board left it, but no one knew anything about it. That's impossible, I said. I know, he replied. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe you sent it and it vanished somehow. Or maybe, he smiled faintly, something bigger wanted you here. Either way, I'm grateful it did. I still don't know how it happened. Maybe it was a technical glitch, maybe fate, or maybe something beyond explanation. But Rachel had been right. Whether I believed in destiny or not, something had guided me toward this place, not to hand me an easy life, but to give me a chance. A chance to grow, to fight, to become someone I never thought I could be. The job wasn't destiny, because it was meant to be. It became destiny because I made it so. 6 months after joining Wildwood, Harry and I had become close friends, bonded by those early chaotic days. My parents didn't understand why I'd taken a pay cut to work at a struggling wildlife sanctuary. But when they visited and saw me caring for an injured owl and teaching kids about conservation, they finally understood. They saw something they hadn't seen in years. I was happy. A year later, Thomas promoted me to director of conservation programs. We'd secured multi-year grants from 2 major foundations. Our school programs had expanded to 10 districts, and we were planning a brand new rehabilitation center. Wildwood wasn't just surviving anymore, it was thriving. And that's when I finally understood what destiny really means. Destiny isn't something that happens to you. It's what happens when opportunity meets preparation. When you take a chance on something impossible. When you're brave enough to show up before you're ready and fight like hell to become ready. If this story about taking chances, finding purpose, and fighting for your dreams moved you, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another inspiring story. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the smallest chance can change everything.